All right, welcome everyone. We're gonna give it a few minutes so that everyone can tune in. We'll start in about 3 to 4 minutes, okay? All right. Feel free to share the live stream link with your friends and family or anyone else who is interested in cryptocurrencies, ICOs and such. We're gonna be doing an AMA with Oleg Gutsol from Consensus. It's a really interesting project. So yeah, be sure to tune in. All right, welcome everyone. This is Dylan. Oh, hello, welcome everyone. This is Dylan from Cryptominded. I hope you enjoyed the nice elevator music. I saw some of you comment on that. But yeah, unfortunately, we have some copyright issues, so I can't play AC/DC. Anyway, I'm Dylan, the founder of Cryptominded, and today we're live with a new ICO review. This time it's with Oleg Gutsol from ConsensusAI. It's a pleasure to sit with Oleg, who is the founder of ConsensusAI and also the former founder of 500px and has played a major role in the head of growth for the e-residency program in Estonia. During this live stream, you can ask Oleg any questions you may have about their ICO, platform, feasibility, etc. So questions can be asked through the live chat on YouTube. Don't hesitate to ask because this is the Ask Me Anything basically for it. So if you have any questions for Oleg, make sure to ask them and I'll do my best to get them answered, okay? After the AMA, you can send in your review of ConsensusAI and stand to win a Ledger Nano S. So previous week's winner was Jeremiah. I hope you will enjoy the Ledger. I have already shipped it to you. And yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback about ConsensusAI, what you think about the project, whether you would invest in it, etc. And yeah, basically this help these reviews unbiased and give the community a better idea of what others think of the project, and also gives Oleg a good idea of potentially where to still improve if you guys have any concerns about the project. So coming Monday, we'll draw a winner and distribute the reviews. All right. Oleg, it's nice to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be here, and thanks for setting it up. A little bit about myself. So you mentioned, started Consensus, and before that I ran 500px. Basically, I was a software developer from like really early. I got into playing with computers and then coding when I was young. And this is sort of what I wanted to do, what I decided I wanted to do then. And so I've been involved with software development since then. In 2007, late 2007, we started 500px, and that grew to a global photo distribution network. And there were some elements of machine learning that we started playing with around 2011 or so. It wasn't even called AI at the time. It was recommendation engines. And I left the company. I left that company about 3 years ago and was traveling for some time. And I was helping some of the early stage companies, but also looking for what to do next. And AI was always the topic that fascinated me. But about a year ago, sort of the thinking on the search culminated during the trip to India, where I was basically, there for the first time, and I experienced India and saw the, sort of the multitude of problems that the country is experiencing. And I thought, I could no longer spend my time working on some fun things. I need to apply the time that I have and the skill to solving some real challenges that people are having. And there's billions of people in the world that are having this, and this basically led to the ConsensusAI idea, and I started working on it, which then led me to Estonia and led me to your residency, and then joining the team and helping grow it. But now I'm back full time on Consensus.
That's awesome. All right. So if you, I've heard a lot of feedback from the community that people find the project a little bit hard to understand. It's a very ambitious project, which I admire. But if you had to explain ConsensusAI to your grandma in a few simple sentences, like what would you say Consensus is?
Okay, so for grandma, I think the explanation would be that this is the extension of our collective mind, and this is an enhancement of our collective decision-making capacity that will serve us to create a better world for ourselves, make better decisions that solve the pressing challenges that we have in our societies today. And that includes everything, basically, from the environment to relations between nations, to how we spend our time and resources better, how do we help each other better, and so on. So really, the way I see it is, my dream really is to see the evolution of the artificial general intelligence, the benign form of it that helps humanity evolve. So how's that for the grandma explanation?
It's great, but would you be able to give maybe a practical example? Like, would a government use ConsensusAI to make better decisions, or would ConsensusAI make a decision on its own for the government? Maybe it is the government. Like, could you give us a practical explanation?
Yeah, the practical explanation would be it's an advisor to the government. It doesn't replace the government. It helps the government make better decisions based on the data that the software will collect and process. The very simple example would be gathering and processing of the public opinion data on various issues that exist. We'll start with very small municipal issues that the government will be able to address, and then process. So collect the feedback data from the people and process it, fusing it with other data sources as well, so that there's a better visibility in terms of the solutions that may be available.
Right, and this isn't necessarily only for the government, right? Like I would also be able to make better decisions through this network. Is that correct?
Sure. What we'd like to do is actually the community to start using it. So from any size community, really. It could be your local neighborhood, all the way up to the entire country. But yes, of course, we'll start with something very small. So you personally will be able to use. You'll be able to, for example, create a proposal and then gather the people who are willing to support it. Collect their votes, and also be able to fund it through the network as well.
Great. Okay, that's interesting. So I was actually about to ask what compelled you to start to work on this, but your trip to India was very decisive in that. Like, it was an eye-opening experience for you, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of experiences that led to it, but I think there it just hit me that I just cannot think about it anymore. I need to act. So yeah, what led to it is basically I was thinking about all the problems that we're having. So things like war and inequality and famine and conflict of any sort, and environmental destruction, pollution. And to me, it seemed like we're having these things is because we don't understand the full picture. We don't see what's really going on. So we have a very narrow slice of reality that we experience, each one of us. But the problems are way more complex than our brains can comprehend. But at the same time, we're developing the technology, and we already have some of it available, and it's evolving, that can help us actually solve some of these things if applied correctly or efficiently. So this was the idea. So how about we fuse the human and machine intelligence and see if that works for us.
All right. So basically, as you know, the community has had the chance to ask any questions they'd like to learn about Consensus. And so we have a bunch of questions came in, and also people are asking questions on the live chat. So now this is the moment that I'll start asking you these questions from the community. Okay. The first question is from Barry, and his question is, Consensus seems to plan on spending a large amount of time building this decentralized computing network to support this project. Mm-hmm. Why are you not building this project on top of an already existing network, such as the Golem network or any other suitable network, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So originally, when I started working on it, I didn't even think about using a decentralized network. But as the idea evolved, it became apparent that this is a better solution. In fact, a decentralized network is much better because it also doesn't belong to any particular corporation. So it's run by the people, and it's decentralized, and just by definition. So I think it fits the project a lot better than just having a centralized database of some sort. Why not use an existing network like Ethereum or Golem or something else? Again, originally I thought about using some of that, but one of the issues that arose was the identity issue, and what we needed to do is to collect data that we could trust from the people. So we need to identify people securely, and basically the network needs to support the digital identities natively, and that's why we'll develop it as a standalone network. And that maybe that leads to some of the other questions. How e-residency plays into this. When I discovered e-residency, and we started talking with Kasper, who's the managing director of it, I think very quickly I thought this was it, and I needed to understand this better. I needed to be a part of it, and that eventually led me to Estonia, so I went there.
Yeah, actually, that is a good lead into the following question. So, on the ConsensusAI website, it states that the launch of the sentient blockchain, mm-hmm. a trusted node verified with national IDs or electronic IDs. Is this program only open to Estonia, or another way to put it is basically like, are there other countries that would this be applicable to? I live in Belgium. I have an electronic ID card, but for example, in the Netherlands, I do not. So how would that work?
Yeah. So as you may or may not know, Estonia is the leader of digital governance. So they have the electronic ID, the single digital ID that the whole country uses. Every citizen or resident of the country uses. They've had it for 15 years or so, and about 3 years ago they've opened it to the rest of the world in the form of e-residency. So that's the extension of their digital ID network. The interesting development is that in Europe, in about a year, all member states will have to recognize each other's electronic identity. So there's a directive called EIDAS that's been, I think, adopted about 2014 or so, and it's voluntary right now for member states to recognize each other's IDs, but it will be mandatory, I think, about September of 2018. So currently, I think Netherlands actually recognizes Estonian IDs in some municipalities, and all the Baltic states already recognize each other's IDs. But in less than a year or so, all the European IDs will basically work with each other. So what we're looking at is integrating other types of electronic identities into the network as they become available, as the APIs become available for them. Right now, not all the member states have them, but we expect them to have them very soon because of this directive. There's also lots of developments in other countries around the world around electronic identities. India is one of the leading countries as well with that HAR network, and most of the population in India now has it. It's in relatively early stages, but we see this development. Basically, by 2030, the entire world will have digital identities. That's the UN goal as part of their Sustainable Development Goals. That's the goal 16.9. And once they will all be able to be appealed.
I just learned something new right there. I was not aware of that. So like when you discovered that, is that kind of like what gave the push to start doing this? Because it was like, well, now it becomes very feasible. Is that like basically that pushed you over the barrier to actually start doing this?
So I was already in Estonia when I discovered that, and specifically about the UN and the digital identity initiatives. I think it gave it some fuel, and so I could see that this could be the future. Once we have all the identities, we can then connect everybody securely and identify people in a way that we can trust the data contributions that they provide in the form of their opinion or their feedback. So yes, this was a very positive sort of discovery that fueled the project further.
So so basically it's a consensus mechanism that helps make better decisions for anyone who would like to use that network. But where does the network get its data from? Like, do I as a community member vote on something? Or like, is there an app that I get a question through and vote on something? Do I get rewarded for that? Like, how does it actually know my opinion?
Yeah. So yes, there will be a number of apps that there'll be a citizen app or a user app that will, based on your preferences and based on where you live and demographic data and so on, will post certain questions and certain things that you'll be able to take part in. So you can think of it as some example would be like a Kickstarter project. But in this sense, it will be something social, something like, your city wants to build a park in your neighborhood. What do you think about it? That will reallocate the budget from some other program into this. Are you for or against it? Are you willing to fund this? So it's almost like opening up for example, the budget distribution decision-making to the broader audience so that the people can have more direct input on issues like that. Whereas right now, rarely do you have visibility into what is going on, and the influence mechanisms are also limited. And in some countries, it's better than others, but there's some countries that desperately need something like that. Like Ukraine, for example, is one of the countries that really needs to change and really wants to, but the mechanisms there are just outdated.
Right. So if you're talking about a government using it, is there any government or entity or institute that has already committed to using this particular platform?
Well, so there are no commitments as of yet because the project, government as a structure, for you to get a government client, you need to have some traction. So one of the things that we're looking to do is to get that by launching the network and gathering the community. E-residency as part of the government program will be the first user base to join it. So they already have the APIs that are available that we can plug into the network and test the products on this user base. One of the things that the Estonian president expressed in the summer is that they were really looking to creating some sort of a sandbox, like a legislation sandbox that's AI driven. It's almost like they wanted an AI minister. She actually said those words to help them test various scenarios, which sort of confirmed when I heard that. It's just confirmed what I was thinking about. So, I mean, Estonia is leading in terms of these initiatives, but there's also an initiative in Singapore that's created, it's actually ongoing already, the legislation sandbox. And it looks like the smaller countries are going to lead in this regard. So these are the ones that we foresee ourselves working with. So I'm thinking maybe New Zealand, Switzerland, Armenia was another one with representatives, which I talked to as well. They were keen on trying something like that as well.
All right. So since you're working with a government, you have advisors working with you who have government experience, but which is great, is the comment from the person asking this question. But his question is, why is there no one on the core team of Consensus like that is from a government, like a former politician, for example?
Right. So in a way, I am a former government employee, being a part of e-residency, which is actually a part of the Ministry of Finance of Estonia. I think at this point, we have enough help and we have enough understanding of what the government may need. So we have James Stewart, who was the former CTO of UK Gov, and he shared his really valuable experience in terms of how they've implemented e-governance in the UK, and the challenges that they came across, and sort of the wins as well. I also met with, and this is a recent initiative actually, and I met with them in Estonia, but the Canadian Digital Service representatives came, and actually the Treasury Board, Canadian Treasury Board also came to Estonia to learn how to set up digital governance in Canada. So we're following up, and we're expecting to have a collaboration there. I think at this stage, this is enough input, but we're continuing to expand the team and also to bring in additional advisors. Just yesterday, I had a number of meetings with various representatives from business and government, and there's lots of excitement, and there's willingness to support us. So we're continually expanding the network, and I foresee that some government representatives will probably join us in the future.
Yeah, some of the community members already commented that the team is pretty sizable. So, I mean, if people are willing to put in their time and effort behind it, they probably do believe in the idea. So I guess there is something happening there. So the development time of the project is something which some have fallen over. Like, how confident are you that you have the right talent to actually deliver on this project? Like, it's a very ambitious project. It will take a lot of development time. Like, could you maybe give us a little bit of background on the developers? Like, how much time will this take? And yeah, it's a concern from the community that maybe it's best to address.
Sure. So no question, the project is daunting. I think for about 2 years, I wasn't even sure. I was scared of it, to the point where I didn't really do anything. I was just thinking about the approach before starting it last year, or late last year. The team that we currently have is relatively strong. So all senior people with lots of experience in the past. George was a part of my previous company. I was actually one of the very few people he was the only person I actually hired the first time I met him. It was late in the interview process, but when I saw him, I was like, look, you need to come and work with me. We'll find a way. And he was one of the best technical leaders we had, building and launching a number of products, and then later leading and working with other AI related companies as well. So, I worked with him in the past. I'm very confident in his abilities. Artem and Julie as well. So Artem worked with Yandex and a number of other startups. He was basically in charge of Yandex Geo services. So that's the equivalent of Google Maps. But Yandex Geo is more than just Google Maps. It's like a combination of Google Maps, Uber, traffic, and delivery services, and all in one. So relatively massive project. And again, working with the governments as well as the private entities. So for example, they work with a number of municipalities that wanted to analyze, for example, traffic data to optimize traffic congestions. So for example, traffic light timing was one of the issues that they worked on. That's tens of millions of people in multiple cities and so on. So he has great expertise, and it's actually his education is exactly in the public service. So he has a combined degree in law and governance and economics. So really strong background. But we're not stopping here. We're expanding the network. Actually, just yesterday, I had a number of conversations with very strong development teams. I don't know if I want to share this yet, but probably next week we'll share specifically about the technical teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just got really strong support from a really interesting project in the blockchain space. So blockchain and AI space. So I'm going to hold on, talking about that because we haven't figured out all the details, but there's great potential there.
All right. Keep an eye on the consensus Telegram in that case. If anyone can post a link on the live chat, that would be great. So this is actually a question coming from me personally. How will politician and human nature play a role in this? Because sometimes we humans are very irrational people, emotional people, and even having a consensus mechanism telling us that we should do A because that's what everyone wants, sometimes we still have an emotional inclination to do the opposite thing. Do you see that form a problem in government, or how do you see that play out?
Sure. Human nature, is there. So of course, sometimes emotions take over and so on. The way I see it is developing consensus as a tool that helps you make better decisions. It doesn't force you to do it. It's more like, it's like an angel sitting here saying this is the right thing you should be doing, but you also have the devil. So, hopefully the angel, overpowers the devil. But, I don't foresee it being fully automated or being forced on the decision makers to say, look, this is the only way we can take. No, what I'd like this to be is the tool that gives these people the greater visibility in terms of the content, and also the people who are not directly involved with the government. I think, we kind of forget that we are the government. We're the people. We sort of elect the structure that helps us coexist better. And I think we've done a relatively good job so far historically. But as the world is changing so rapidly now, I think the current structures also need to change, and these structures don't change as fast. So just foreseeing that what we'd like to develop is a better way, a better structure to help us coexist. But in no way I think it should be forced. I think it should help the current one transition into the future.
All right, great. Thank you for that answer. It's a topic that particularly fascinates me. We'll now get to some of the questions that have been asked through the live chat. And after that, we'll get to all the questions related to the token sale specifically. Many of you on the live chat have been asking about that. Don't worry, we'll get to that. So the first question is from Jeremiah. And his question is, at which point do you need AI? If you're asking people questions in their opinion, can't you just compute the majority vote?
Mm-hmm. Sure, that we can do, and we will. What we'd like to do is start gathering all the data that's not being directly contributed. So basically environmental data, publicly available and privately available as well. We'll anticipate working with data marketplaces to acquire the data that may be needed for any particular research. So it's not just the public opinion that we want to gather, but then we want to fuse it with other data and process that. So for example, the legislation that's being passed, making analysis on that, but also other external factors. For example, if we talk about the environmental challenges, usually a lot of the business decisions, for example, don't take externalities or didn't take externalities as a factor. So presenting externalities, I think, is already an interesting and valuable addition that we can have.
So if I understand it correctly, basically the opinions of people is just a part of the data. It's not all the data. It's also actual scientifically research environmental data, if it's regarding an environment or economical factors that count in, not just opinions. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. It is correct. Yes. So, for example, we can think that having more jobs is a good thing, and some people may think that this is true, but maybe having not more jobs but different jobs and a better social support structure is a better way. But it's very hard for us to actually see what one or the other will lead to without modeling any particular direction. So we then rely on our biases and our gut feel and our sort of our own thoughts and feelings about the topic, which is leads to subjectivity. But what if we could have a better answer to one or the other scenario, or like the question through one of the other scenarios?
Right. I find that an interesting angle of it, I think. So, but it's hard to understand initially from like reading the website. So I thank you for answering that. I think it will help a lot of people better understand it. A question from Tom. Would the project waste energy with the calculations on the blockchain, or is it eco-green, like the energy is well spent? What's your opinion on that? Like basically with the recent debates about like Bitcoin using so much electricity in comparison to fiat, do you like feel that energy usage will be a problem?
Yeah, and in fact, one of our advisors is working on this topic in China. So it's the green energy blockchain project that he's involved with, but also other ones as well. But yeah, it is a real concern, and actually, the concern of Bitcoin is what we thought about as well. We're spending so much compute power, so much electricity on basically meaningless calculation. Like we're verifying transactions, but that's it. And we could use it to solve some real problems that we're having. So yes, the internal consensus protocol of the actual blockchain consensus protocol need to be different. What we foresee doing is spending the resources on data storage and data processing rather than just computing the proof of work. So yeah, the details of the algorithm will be shared a bit later. But yes, it is a real concern, and we don't want to waste electricity on just computing the blockchain.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's a hard topic, I think, as well. Like it's a hard issue to crack. So now I hope you guys all have a little bit of a better understanding of what ConsensusAI is. I think the answers that Oleg gave were very interesting, at least. And now we'll get to the fun part for all of you guys, which is more of the ICO aspect. So as most of you know, Consensus is launching an ICO. Maybe like this is the point where I actually introduce Arseny. Arseny is also on the live stream. Arseny is from Mothership. He's the CEO and founder of Mothership. And Arseny built a platform on which Consensus is going to be launching. So maybe first, Arseny, would you maybe give us a little bit of an explanation of what is that platform and why did you guys pick Consensus as the first project to launch on that platform?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Arseny from Mothership. And why we built Genesis? Because when we were launching our ICO in Estonia, we really liked the whole experience and how open the country is to innovations and how useful digital identities can be. So I think digital identities is generally quite a big thing in the blockchain industry here in Estonia, and it's one of it's in part why we really like Consensus as the first ICO on our platform, because it's centered around digital identities and centered around having, a real identity, a real person having a single vote. And in case of our products, we also leverage e-residency and other digital identities for KYC, for additional security. And there are other startups which are doing the same. So it's all kinds of in right the same area.
So what is the advantage for the investors of having Consensus launch via Genesis? Is there anything maybe like even the mothership token holders will benefit from, or has it anything to do with like the ease of participating? Could you maybe like tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. We've been working with several teams of lawyers to figure out the exactly correct set of documents to be absolutely sure that your sale is absolutely legitimate. And then we also build the whole KYC process compliant with all local and European laws. So also later on, when the company doing the ICO will want to move some of the funds to fiat in order to fund their operational expenses, they will be easy. It will be easy for them to explain the source of funds for the bank. Then the platform itself. The platform itself is built with security in mind, and we specifically aimed for building a centralized platform in order to be able to accept several different currencies. So right now we know that the Ethereum network is still congested with all those kitties. So then again, with Bitcoin. Yeah, hello. Am I here yet?
We can still hear you. Don't worry.
Cool. Yeah. Then with Bitcoin, the fees are pretty high now, and the network is a bit congested. So it's in case of Genesis platform, since customers are able to use Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum there, they always have an option to not miss the opportunity to participate in the ICO. And as well, customers can use our own token, MSP, to reserve themselves as spot in the crowd sale. In case of Consensus, the ratio is 1-to-1. So one MSP reserves you 1 cent during the sale. Yeah, so I think that's about it, right?
All right, interesting. So a few questions again for Oleg, actually. So one of the first question is, are you guys issuing a ERC20 token, or are you creating your own unique token? And how will this work ICO-wise?
Yeah, so for the ICO, we are issuing an ERC20 token that will be exchanged, 1-to-1 when the network goes live, which we foresee happening in about a year.
Okay, so is there any utility of the token until then, or is it?
No, it's a placeholder. It's a placeholder token until the launch of the main net. I don't think we'll work on any specific utility until then. We'll be focusing on the core network.
Makes total sense. So one of the questions came through, which is, what is the specific utility of the token? What can you, like, as an investor, what can I eventually do with the token?
So we foresee it being a payment mechanism for using the AI. So what we call the requesters, so that would be the government bodies or researchers, private researchers as well, will be able to pay for the recommendations provided by the engine with the token. And it's also reward mechanisms for the people providing data in the form of public opinion or other types of data. So it is used to power the marketplace dynamic between the people who need some research done on the network and the people willing to provide means to do it. So the compute power and the data and their opinion, it's part of the data.
All right. So will the tokens be tradable after like the ICO immediately? Like, can I actually exchange the tokens, or will it be locked up until like the actual network goes live?
Yeah, we're still working out the details. I think we're leaning towards they will be tradable before the launch of the main net. But this is something we'll announce in the coming weeks.
All right. Apologies for my late reply. I was just chatting to the community, asking them for their last questions, their remaining questions. If you guys have any other questions to ask Oleg or potentially Arseny about Genesis or Consensus or the ICO that they are having up and coming, please, this is your last chance. I have a few more questions, but we'll be rounding it up soon. So if there's anything else that you'd like to know, this is your chance to ask them in the live chat, okay? So
I had a question here by TurboD. Really quick answer. Does ICO address support SegWit screw fees? So this is actually something we just talked with the engineering team like a week ago. So like I said, we are focusing on security with the Genesis platform. So we've been using hardware wallets, Trezors, in order to keep the private keys. And then there are no hot wallets. We only export XPubs. So there is like no way to hack the platform. And yeah, we were thinking about SegWit. Thing is that our engineers have been tinkering with the way Trezor generates SegWit addresses, and we are now looking if we won't screw ourselves if we start generating SegWit addresses, because it's a bit hacking there. Like, and there is a slight possibility that something may go wrong with generating them. So we will know for sure. I think within a week or so. But yeah, we really want to have those.
All right, awesome answer. I almost forget that question came in, for which my apologies. So a few more questions that came in. What do you have any estimate on the actual ICO date? Like, when can we expect the ICO?
Yeah, early 2018. Again, in the coming weeks, we'll actually open up the date. But we expect late January. All
right, so potentially January, but definitely the first quarter of 2018, right? So maybe this is your last chance, a short pitch for why would someone buy the Consensus token in this ICO? This is your chance to basically pitch them and convince them. Sure. Why would you buy it? So I think the bigger answer, or the bigger goal, or my goal, I guess, in part, is that this fuels the development of the systems that will help us collectively. So everybody benefits from. If this goes live the way, or materializes the way we envision it, I think we'll have a completely renewed society. We'll have a much better world. This is the world that I'm excited to live in, hope to see. So that's, this is why I'm doing it. And hopefully this attracts the people who think along the same lines and want to see that change. So that's that. For more pragmatic reasons, what we're seeing is this being a very valuable tool and being used by the decision makers around the world, which will increase the value of the token, and benefits the investors and the early supporters this way.
that's basically the reason.
Awesome reason, I think. So, all right, that was it, guys. Thank you so much, Oleg and Arseni, for doing this AMA with us. I hope that we answered most of your questions. And I know there are some questions that came in. Unfortunately, we have to round up. But I'll make sure that those questions do get answered privately. For example, Jeremiah still had a question, but they will be answered privately. So don't worry about that. So now is basically the chance to review the consensus ICO. So if you want to participate in the ICO or you have any concerns about the project, this is your chance to let us know. In the YouTube description, you will find a link on top of the description. It says review and win. And basically just click there and it will ask you a few questions about the project, whether you would like invest in this particular ICO, etc. From all the responses that we get, we pick a winner, and that winner will win a Ledger Nano S. Jeremiah was last week's winner, so he can attest to actually getting the Ledger Nano S. Yeah, definitely make sure to review the consensus ICO, because that allows us all to make a better decision on this upcoming project. I'll be sharing all of the feedback that comes in with you guys on the Cryptominded community, but also in the description of the video. So yeah, be sure to do that. Thank you very much, everyone. And that was it. Thank you, Oleg, and thank you, Arseni.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.